Welcome back, familia. This is your host, Rafael Collazo, and you're watching and listening to The Collazo Show. The Collazo Show provides conversation analysis at the intersection of leadership, politics, y cultura. Again, this is your humble host, Rafael Collazo. I don't know if my family would agree with that, and my homies would agree that I'm humble, but that's why we have the comment section. Familia, we are 76 days, and it really isn't even 76 days. Because they start sending ballots out in September, early vote by mail, absentee. It's not even really 76 days, fam. We are at the precipice of election season. So since it's not even 76 days, I wanted to have an episode just dedicated to give y'all a primer, an overview of the midterm elections. What's it going to take for Democrats to flip the House? Is the Senate really in play? Come on, Ray. Give me some good news. I'll give you some of my analysis of that as well. And very importantly, how Latinos fit into the puzzle. Is the Latino vote really going to make it or break it? Are Latinos still down with Trump? Are Latinos down with what's going on with Democrats? I'll give you some insights on that stuff. But I really want to give you an overview of what's going down here in terms of, kind of the map and what's at stake. What are the states and races you need to be looking at? What races, how the elections are happening near you? Y'all need to do a little homework. I'm going to give you all the homework after this at the end of the show. But it's really important you understand what's going on and what's at stake and what the map looks like. All right. So we refer to this election cycle as the midterm elections, familia, because we have elections everywhere. There's elections, dog catchers, mayors, there's all city council. There's always some election going on every year somewhere in your community. But every other year is a federal election because all the members of Congress are up and many members of the Senate are up. And in this particular case, this is a midterm. We refer to it as a midterm election because this is the federal elections and the congressional elections in the middle of a presidential term. All right. So every member of the House is up, all 435 of them. And these numbers are going to be very important as it relates to what happens. And then, of course, and about a little over a third, it's actually more than a third of the Senate. I think it's 36 of the 100 seats are up. And there's a lot of important stuff. We're not going to have time to get into this episode. Tons of very important governor's races and state legislatures from coast to coast. There's a few seats that if they flip the right way in Pennsylvania state legislature, we get minimum wage passed in the state of Pennsylvania, which could, for some of our fam, could double their income. So there's a lot on the line coast to coast. We'll have other episodes getting into some of the state stuff. We're going to focus on the federal today. But just to get the basics out the way, okay? Let's talk about what's happening. As you all know, on the federal level, Republicans unfortunately control everything. They control the White House, the Senate, and really, most importantly, the Supreme Court. That's really been the backstop for this nonsense of the Trump administration and the complicit members of Republicans in Congress. This election's our best opportunity to slow down. Let's keep it real. We can't really completely stop it, even if we have a wonderful electoral results and we control both chambers, Democrats. We can slow it down, especially if we control both significantly. We can slow down the agenda of this destructive administration and begin the process of holding Trump and his enablers accountable. And hopefully at some level begin the process of healing, hopefully. But let's start with accountability and slowing up the bad stuff. And this is very important for us to emphasize to our friends and family, because we hear it all the time. We hear the frustration. Why aren't Democrats doing more? Why don't they do more? Why don't they fight harder? Why can't they stop this? Now, I agree with a lot of that sentiment. There's, from a theatrical perspective and a rhetorical perspective and actional perspective, they should be fighting more. But the reality is they don't have a lot of power in this setup, fam. We should have fought a little harder and thought about that 2024 when we have fall-off voters not voting for some of these House races. I think if 10,000 more people had voted Democrat in three districts combined, we wouldn't have this problem in the House. So it's on us to remedy the situation. But when you can't stop bills from passing, when you don't have subpoena power, when you can't call a hearing, it's very limited what you can do. And that's why this process, this midterm election is so, so, so important. Okay. If Democrats can get some control of this government now, we have a chance if we don't get control of any of this government now, this might be I won't say it's the most important election because I think those have passed and we lost 2 of the 3 of them, frankly. But it may be the last important election, maybe the last relevant election, if we don't get some control, some check, and some balance in this governmental structure. Let's start with my analysis of the House of Representatives. Okay, there's 435 members. Right now, the Republicans control it, the House, and that's why you have Speaker Johnson. It's a simple majority, no matter what, even if it's 1 vote, odd number, 218 to 213. There's some vacancies, Swalwell, and some scandals, and people had to resign. I think 1 person passed. So if the incumbent party had those seats, it would be 219 to 216. So hypothetically, you would say the Democrats literally only have to net 2 seats to flip it back to 218 to 17. Incredibly. But it really isn't that simple because Republicans cheat and have cheated. So due to partisan and racist redistricting and the shameful Supreme Court decision that made it legal basically to disenfranchise Black voters in the South and Puerto Rican voters in the South, by the way, Republicans have gained 11 more seats in the math than they should have going into this election. So they've now gained the advantage. Dems tried to fight back in California, but, we basically have gained only 3 Republican seats in that mix. Don't sleep on that Utah seat. The Virginia State Supreme Court decision really screwed us up. This would be it would have evened out basically if the State Supreme Court in Virginia didn't screw us over. On one hand, the Dakota says it's on the states, and then the state says, well, you can't do that. Even if, in the case of Virginia, the voters decided on how to change these lines. So, it's very, very ugly stuff, very unfair. So with this new map, essentially, this political map we have to deal with in November, Democrats have to essentially net 6 seats in totality to take back to Congress by the slimmest of margins. But if you really want to get things done in reality, they need really to net about 12 or so, just because there's always some fall off. And you don't want it down to 1 or 2 seats. At that point, anything can happen. Somebody could pass away, somebody get sick. Of course, Republicans don't care about that. McConnell, who knows where he's at, but he still counts for them. But anyway, so out of my analysis, some people disagree. Some people think it's a little smaller. We do have a relatively small amount of them that are competitive just because of redistricting by both sides over the years. But out of that 435, I have, in my analysis, I have about 40 of them that are legitimately in play. So, because even in some districts that Trump won by 10%, I see opportunities for Democrats, especially for Democrats, and especially in these seats that are in diverse states, and especially in communities where Democratic voters and Black and Latino voters are getting screwed by redistricting. So in places like Florida, Texas, we're going to talk a lot about Texas, and some of the other communities. So I see it, and I see it also from the results. I mean, if you look at the polling over the last year and a half, Democrats in places like, the governor's races last year, some of these primary races, special elections, poll 5 to 10% better than they should. And then they end up outperforming those polling numbers by 5 to 10% typically. So, and the turnout's been extremely high. There's some districts in Texas that came out tripled from the primaries in previous cycles. So I think there's a bigger ceiling than some of the pundits believe there is for the Democrats, even in a slanted map because of redistricting. Look, I live in New Jersey, fam. I didn't think Cheryl was going by 13 points. So, and that was a year ago. Look how much less popular Trump is than today. How much more emphasis there's going to be on this upcoming midterm elections? How much more investment? How many more candidates? How much more is on the line? I mean, for the problem with Republicans is they have nothing to offer their own constituency. The economy sucks. The gas thing and those price inflation is, and you can't say, well, there's only so much you can do about it. It's because of his policies related to tariffs and foreign affairs with Iran is why you have higher prices. I mean, you can directly tie it to him. And then, God forbid, if you actually care about people, what's going on with immigration enforcement. I talk about that incessantly on the show. And by the way, he's crapping on service members' families, saying they're lying, saying it's not that bad on these ships. Imagine being a military spouse hearing that on TV, especially someone that supported him. Military generally supports Republicans. And hearing, oh, it's not that bad on that ship. Oh, these people are lying. that it's bad on these ships. So I think Democrats have a relatively high ceiling here. So in those 40 districts, Democrats go 20 to 10. They take the House back by the whisker. And that's not a good place to be, too, because if it's up to 1 or 2, even 3 or 4 seats, that's the range where Trump could, get the DOJ to take over voting machines in 3 or 4 counties strategically around the country, or stop people from counting votes in California or something, and throw this whole thing off and put the democracy, the Constitution, on the line. Have a true constitutional crisis. If Democrats are more in the 30 to 10 range, or a 30 to 10 range in that 40 instead of like 25 to 15 or 22 to 8, 22 to 18. Now you're talking about a lot harder to interfere. Now you're talking about states with Democrats run the processes in the Midwest, Democratic governors, Democratic attorney generals, Democratic secretaries of state. It'd be much harder to negatively influence those elections. But putting voter suppression aside, because that's something we have to stay diligent on, and that's a real threat to this whole situation, I'm optimistic, generally. So where do Latinos come into play? Let's talk about that for a second. I'm going to say it. I'm going to keep saying it. Latinos are going to determine what party controls the House. That's the biggest lesson, one of the biggest lessons I want y'all to get out of this process. In my analysis, and it doesn't take a rocket science to figure this stuff out. A couple Google searches. I encourage you to look into it. Look at the Cook Political Report. Follow the Latino Vote podcast. Ecky's Lab does a lot of research. There's a lot of, my organization has a lot of great polling. We'll need those. Check our stuff out. A couple of Google searches. You can find some really interesting information that is going to open your eyes even more to the fact how the power of the Latino vote in this coming up election, especially with the House. So what do I mean? So out of those 40 districts that I'm talking about 24 of them about 24 of them or so have a strong Latino voter presence. There's about half dozen of them that are majority Latino congressional district. California 22 in the Central Valley, California. Texas 15, Texas 34. Those districts along the valley, the Rio Grande Valley, we talk a lot about. Florida 27 in Miami, which I think is going to be very competitive. I'm going to be very active there. And then you have this other set where it's at least 10%, 10 to 20% plus, where you have Latinos are also very influential that can tilt the tide and swing elections. My neck of the woods, Pennsylvania 7, Lehigh Valley, big Puerto Rican population. Over 20% of the voters are Latinos. The Puerto Rican Latino vote is going to decide not just the Pennsylvania 7, but that swath of congressional districts, 7, 8, and 10, the 222 corridor from York, PA to the Poconos to Scranton. My team was at the Scranton Latino Festival, getting Latinos excited, registering them to vote, getting them excited. Latinos along the Northeast corridor in very diverse communities like that are going to make an impact. Nebraska, too, fam, the congressional district in Omaha, the Republicans currently have that seat. They basically have given up on it almost because the tide has turned there. And not only is there a Latino voter presence, the candidate's Latina. Latina Democratic candidate Joanna Mendoza in Arizona 6, Tucson area, Southern Arizona. Latino voters are going to decide who controls Congress. This is a great opportunity because it's not just a handful of exciting races, a handful of exciting candidates, but Latinos are gonna. It's like a national election because Latino voters have influence in congressional districts, literally coast to coast, fam. Hudson Valley, and so if you're watching this, you either live in one of those districts or you're within a drive to it. You live in New York, you got the Hudson Valley District, New York 15. You live in Denver, you got Colorado 8 around the corner in Commerce City, Greeley, those communities. There's a bunch of seats in South Florida. There's a bunch of seats all over Texas. You live in Phoenix, Arizona 1. You drive out, 20 minutes from your house going east, probably you'll run into a competitive congressional district. So Washington State has competitive congressional districts that have not only Hispanic voters, but Hispanic candidates. Congresswoman Guzicam Perez, she has a tough re-election. So if you put it's a great opportunity for us but it's a whole lot of work, fam. It's a whole lot of work. We need more investment. I'm not going to lie. We're running, unfortunately, Latino advocacy groups running into the same challenges with getting the investment we need to organize in our communities. But I still feel, despite that, I feel optimistic because Trump's really unpopular. He's getting really unpopular Latinos. I mean, he nothing but doing. He's whatever you're supposed to do to engage Latinos, he's doing the complete opposite. Whether it's immigration, the economy stuff, foreign affairs, his rhetoric, the corruption. I mean, he's spitting in our face every day, and we're starting to wake up to it. And look, a quarter of Latino Trump voters are already admitting in polling that they regret their vote. So that's a powerful. That's very difficult to get people to flip like that within a year and a half. So the wins are going in the right direction. And like I said, them poll 5 to 10% better than they're supposed to. Then they outperform those numbers. So I think, a 20-30 seat swing in Congress to Democrats is possible. And like I said, if you're listening to this, you're watching this, you live near one of these districts, you may live in one of these districts, get involved, connect with my organization. I'll connect you. If we're not doing work there, we'll connect you with the organizations on the ground. And if we really believe this could be the last important one, we have to do everything we can. Let's take a quick break. Let's watch a best of the Collazo show clip. Then I'll come back. Then we'll talk a little bit about the Senate map. Senate's a little different story. Very interesting story, though. On the Collazo show, conversation and analysis at the intersection of politics, leadership, y cultura.
My bad. She messed my hide up, right? Because I was high on marijuana. So I was like, she just messed my hide up. And I just felt that every word that came out of her mouth, she was directing it at me. So when she was done, I asked her, like, yo, what can I do? I'm doing life. I'm from New York, and she said, you could be my source, which I didn't even understand what source meant at the time. But then she said, you could be the voice for the voiceless. And that's what clicked.
So when I was a little kid, my life was salsa, because my dad was the one that threw all the dances and talked about the salsa. And then when we started getting in the 80s, the Colombian immigrant population that were big salseros, they gravitated to my dad because he was the radio guy and the music guy. And so, when I thought about that and I thought about that history, and it put a smile on my face when I'm flipping channels on New Year's Eve, and I forget, it was one of the Spanish language New Year's Eve shows. Oscar de Leon, 82 years old.
Oh yeah, he was. He was.
He's still fantastic.
Yes. Oh my God.
He's still going strong.
Guy side and everything, and he's still doing it.
He's still amazing. For people who don't know, Oscar de Leon is the GOAT Venezuelan salsero. And let me tell you, and I'm saying this as a Puerto Rican that is the biggest Puerto Rican salsa snob there is. Oscar de Leon is in the conversation for greatest salsero ever. That's how amazing that man is in his 80s.
He's amazing.
Still going strong. The greatest bassist, stand-up bassist ever. Incredible performer in his 80s, still strong. School these people. La música salsa, la música tropical y Venezuela, I mean, it's part of la vibra de ustedes. It's incredible.
La salsa brava.
Claro.
La salsa que
talking.
se va, la salsa that you dance like really, really, really close to your partner. Oscar de Leon is not just a singer for Venezuela or a salsa singer. He's a cultural treasure. And for me, it's a cultural memory. Since I have memory, I remember being really young, dancing on my grandmother's living room during Christmas or any party.
Welcome back. There's your host, Rafael Collazo. There's some wonderful clips. We had a quick clip of my main man, Suave Gonzalez, legendary podcaster. Definitely check out, if you haven't already, the Suave podcast, award-winning, Pulitzer Prize-winning. Him and the iconic Latina journalist was featured in that clip as well. Maria Hinojosa, much respect to Maria. And of course, Ade Ferro, one of the top Venezuelan American activists that we have in this country, having a conversation. We had a wide-ranging conversation around the time of the incursion by the U.S. government with Venezuela, but that opened the door to the aperture to a great conversation about politics, culture, and of course, the Venezuelan Puerto Rican community. Somos primo hermano. And amongst one of the things we share is, of course, our love and the cultural DNA of La Música Salsa and Oscar de Leon is just a legend. And now that Ferro's a legend, I'm going to see her at a Venezuelan American Summit pretty soon. So you'll be seeing more content featuring Ade. All right, fam. Let's talk about the Senate. Let's talk about the Senate for a second. Of course, I know Tallarico mania out there. People want to talk about Tallarico, but we're going to talk about Tallarico, but let's talk about the Senate for a minute. Much smaller map. Easier to kind of get your mind around. There's only 100 senators. Only 36 of those seats are up. The Republicans control the Senate by 53-47. So if you do the math on that, Democrats have to net 4. You can't lose any. You still got to win 4. Okay? A tie, the vice president breaks ties. So you got to be up 51-49. They don't even get into effect what Fetterman might do in that scenario, which keeps you up at night. For my analysis, this could change. 1 or 2 more may jump on the map. I'm at 9 that are competitive. I'll see about Kansas City and Nebraska. Kansas and Nebraska show me a little bit more. I know some people are optimistic even about Montana. Got to show me a little something there first. But this map is pretty simple, fam. The Democrats have to keep the 3 they got that are in the competitive range. Georgia, Ossoff's looking very strong. New Hampshire, should be fine. You always got to worry about it because you're small numbers. You know, a handful of 5,000 votes could swing it usually. So it's always precarious, even though that's a pretty educated electorate. So they're not big into Trump. And of course, in Michigan, we'll have time to talk about Michigan. Latino vote comes into play there, by the way. And the diverse vote, black population, of course, is big in Michigan. Our homie, our guy, Abdullah Syed against Mike Rogers. We have time to talk about that. So, okay. So those 3. So there's 3 holds. So even assuming the holds, Democrats got to pick up 4 more. 4 out of 6. There's 6 relatively competitive ones. North Carolina, first up on the list. Roy Cooper, former governor. He's one of the most electable Democrats in the South. Got his lose elections. It's looking very good. He's up big up in the polls to the point where Republicans almost are conceding it at this point. They have a lousy candidate that Trump handpicked. Then you got the real 4 world white ones. Maine. Who knows what's going on in Maine? You can go to other podcasts, talk about Maine. Our space, we talk about it too much because, anyway. The 2 Midwest ones we all have in our hearts. We would love to see flip back. Ohio and Iowa. Democrats have strong candidates. The Republicans have good candidates. And tariffs and some of the stuff that Trump has done has really hit them in the heart directly. And, you know, white people, even in those areas that aren't big on immigration, are like, hey, you know, my immigrant down the block's nice. You know, the Haitian thing's not going to help him, even though Ohio governor Mark DeWine said, hey, please don't leave our Haitians alone. So, and, you know, with all due respect, I know how Puerto Ricans would be like, hey, Latino vote is big. It's up there. It's definitely a factor to close election. For sure. Alaska, Native, who knows? It's impossible to figure out what's going on in Alaska. It's how to campaign in Alaska, you know. One Eskimo ride at a time. You know, I mean, show, you know, the dogs. It's just, it's difficult. And some Latinos up there, by the way. But Native American, a very strong Democratic candidate, Native American woman. We could have 2 Native American women in the Senate, by the way, if her and Peggy Flanagan win in Minnesota, which that's expected. But from a Latino perspective, and I think a lot of the energy is going to be looked at Texas. Of course, Chase Tallarico's a candidate. Ken Paxton couldn't have a worse candidate. Talk about corrupt. Also have on top of the ticket, Gina Hinojosa, who's a Latina state representative. They're running for governor. Governor's race is critically important for the Latino community. We're going to have episodes just talk about Texas and that race, because from a quality of life perspective of the Latino community, the Texas governor, for it to flip to a Democrat that actually knows what they're doing, instead of this odious dictator that they've had over the last 16 years, Governor Abbott. I mean, that would. There's no more election other than president that impacts Latinos more than that race. So critically important. We do everything we can with Gina also. What we're gonna do in Texas, fam? Texas, we have won Texas. Democrats have won Texas in 36 years, 35 years. I was in high school the last time a Democrat won a statewide race in Texas. There's lots of reasons for that. A lot of it's related to voter suppression, you know, the Southern, the conservatism with the religiosity, but just overall, just lack of investment in Black and Latino communities. That's kind of the sum of it. But Texas is the big prize. Could have 20% plus Latino electorate in that rate. If we get 20% of the electorate Latino plus, Tellerico and Hinojosa have a real good shot. Think about it. In 2018, 8 years ago, when my friend from college, by the way, Beto O'Rourke, ran for Senate against Ted Cruz, he was really starting from scratch because we were, we hadn't, invested much. And Ted Cruz, even though Trump wasn't as popular in 2018, the economy wasn't bad. And Ted Cruz was more popular in Texas than Ken Paxton is now. So you're talking 8 years later, yeah, we've fallen behind electorally in a lot of ways. But at the same time, Tellerico can kind of build off what Beto and others have done in the past. His primary win, and now he's had a longer runway to prepare after a pretty early primary in February. And Trump now is super unpopular. And the demographics over the last 8 years have changed in Texas. So you have a lot more higher educated people moving in, particularly in the Dallas area, San Antonio area, the Houston area, but really Dallas, especially. And the Latinos have soured on Trump. I mean, Latino men, I saw some of the polling, have swung 50% the other way against them when he was 50-50 with Latino men plus in 2024. So the bottom line is, and Beto only lost by 2 points. Now, getting those last 2-3 points is the hardest thing in American politics in Texas. Getting those last 2-3 points in Texas is the hardest thing to do. But the reality is it's in our hands. And I'm talking about Latinos in Houston, El Paso, Austin, Harlingen, Eastern Texas. We got a lot of fam out there, a lot of Puerto Ricans in Texas, over 100,000 Puerto Ricans in Texas. I have me and my wife counted the other. We have 17 relatives and friends, Puerto Ricans in the Dallas area alone, including 11 Puerto Rican voters. And that's just the Puerto Rican part. So the path is there. The question is, will Latino voters, will we have the resources to get to our folks, to educate them, to persuade them, to have them understand the importance of this election, understand Tellerico and Hinojosa's vision for a new day in Texas where we actually don't let our people freeze when there's storms, where we actually support, move towards cleaner energy, where we actually support working people, where we actually give them more freedom to unionize and get benefits and stronger wages, when we actually provide Latino children the education that they deserve, when we provide our community and especially our children the health care they deserve. The largest, the state, Texas is a state percentage-wise with the largest amount of uninsured Latino children. That's sinful. And I can go over again and again and again all of the policies that this destructive Texas Republican regime over the last 16 years has wrought on us. But they sell us religiosity, they sell us rhetoric, they sell us, some cultural things, around gun rights or whatever, and we buy into that. And we think we convince ourselves, some of us, that that's important. Or most acutely, Democrats haven't invested and engaged our community. With the lack of investment, you almost can't blame people sometimes, honestly. So this is a new day. We've got some exciting candidates on top of the ticket. People that speak to, in the case of Tellerico, someone that can speak to us from the perspective of his spiritual values. And that's very appealing for us, our community. Gina Hinojosa, I mean, who else would you want representing us as someone from our community like Gina? I mean, you can't get down home. And Gina's qualified. Gina's spunky. Gina's from the community. Gina's prepared. I mean, Gina's a champion for our community. Good people. Got a chance to spend a little time with her and her team in Texas recently. We got to do everything we can to support Gina. A lot of exciting candidates. Bobby Polito, I mean, he's a big Tejano star. I mean, that race, Texas 15, is, even though it's not considered, a toss-up race. Everybody knows that's a toss-up because of his star power and this shift that we're seeing back, and this rebuke of the Trump agenda in our community, even more moderate conservative parts of our community. And then those other states, fam, we got to organize. Every vote's going to count. Every vote's going to count. The Ohio Latino vote is going to matter. The Iowa Latino vote is going to matter. Yeah, we'll see about Maine. I mean, the South, very important for voting rights, for Black brown unity. North Carolina, Georgia, working together in those states. Florida. I want to talk about Florida for a second. Go back to the House piece. I've said this on the show, and I'm going to say it probably every other show I'm going to have until the elections. And I'm talking about Puerto Ricans right here. After the shameful Supreme Court decision, the Kelly decision, that basically ended the Voting Rights Act to a large degree. 60 decades and centuries of pushing for equal voting rights in the country go away in one Supreme Court decision by the shameful racist Supreme Court. The Republicans in the South immediately go to change all these lines to disenfranchise Blacks and Latinos. Ron DeSantis, who had support, not insignificant support in the Puerto Rican Latino community in Texas during his 8 years, immediately goes, and the first thing he does is doesn't rush to deal with your housing tax, your house taxes, your mortgage taxes in Florida, which I know all you Puerto Ricans complain about. Doesn't rush to increase your wages. Doesn't rush to increase the minimum wage. Doesn't rush to find ways to make your utilities more affordable. Rushes, has a special session, turns heaven and earth, so that you could have less Black and Latino voters, especially Puerto Rican voters in Central Florida, and Black voters all over the state have less political power. So now Darren Soto, who should be in a relatively comfortable election because the Puerto Rican voters again and again in the Orlando area have supported him because he's who they want. Because of the way they now have divvied up the districts, he's going to have 60,000 less Puerto Rican Latino voters in his district to decide if he's reelected. Is that fair to the Puerto Rican community in Florida, regardless of if you're conservative, liberal, whatever? Even if you wanted to run a Republican against him in a Puerto Rican seat, by all means, go do it. But this is cheating. And this is disenfranchising the Puerto Rican Latino community in Central Florida. And I want my Puerto Rican people to understand that election alone, we have to stand up and stand for our respect. It's not really a Democrat-Republican thing. It's about, are you going to allow people to continue to disenfranchise and disempower the Puerto Rican community? Because if you thought your ideas were better, you thought your vision for your policy was better for the Puerto Rican community, you could run a Puerto Rican Republican or Republican against Darren in a fair fight and run against them. But you had to screw around with the lines to disempower him. So that's one of many races. Obviously, the Pennsylvania ones are top priority for me from a Puerto Rican perspective. Puerto Rican voters have a lot of influence in this race. But in general, the Latino vote across the country, it's so exciting, the diversity, all these really interesting races in the South. Colorado 8, we have the Dominican guy running against the Mexican-American in Colorado 8. Really interesting race. We're doing a town hall there next week in Commerce City, Colorado. Manny Rutnell, much respect to that brother. Joanna Mendoza, great profile, military veteran down in Tucson, running against a Latino Republican. Who's a clean-cut cat. Juan Ciscomani. Sure, he's a nice guy, family man, Christian, bilingual, immigrant. But all that's nice. You dress nice. You smell good. Your family pictures are beautiful. Lovely family. But you vote and support the Trump with everything. And we lose health care. The numbers in terms of Latinos and just working people that have lost health care access have been criminal. Food stamps. So you say you go to church and you dress nice. You have a nice suit at church. And you have the cologne, right? You look good. Your hair's hooked up. Says Kamani. I'm sure it's wonderful. You look good, bro. But guess what? If you go vote and cut SNAP benefits, y los pobres niños hispanos ahí en la comunidad, they now, instead of being short 5 or 6 meals a month, they're short 15 meals a month. That's not about God. That's not right. That's wrong. That's a sin. So our community needs to know this information to make their own decisions. Let's see what happens in Texas. Let's see what happens. But let me tell you something. I know one thing, fam. This is going to be a fun 76 days. And I'm just hoping that I have the strength and the time and the organizational skills and the time management skills so we can have as many episodes of the Collazo show during this time period get my buddies out here working on these elections. Hopefully some of these candidates, I'd love to have some of these candidates, continue to have candidates. So y'all can learn who these people are. There's a lot of good emerging people out here to have an opportunity. You know, the presidential stuff's around the corner. We're going to talk about AOC, fam. And if she going to run, I got the day and night familia. I got Puerto Ricans texting me about this stuff. It's a lot of fun. We talk about it. We're going to talk about some of it here. We got to be careful because sometimes we have quasi inside information. But look, there's nothing we can't analyze y'all don't already see. She's ahead of all the polling. So why shouldn't she think about it? I mean, she'd be foolish not to think about it. If you're the one ahead of in all the polls, look it up. A Puerto Rican woman, not even 40. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, freezing her eggs. Letting everybody know directamente the boyfriend's out the picture. She's considering it. We'll see. God bless her. We pray for her. Whatever she does, we'll stand with her, and we'll see what happens. But a lot of great candidates out there. We know. Hey, look, we know by Thanksgiving there'll be 15 candidates, fam. You know what I mean? There's gonna be a lot of good people, and a lot of speculation. There's a lot of conversations you have. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But the Collazo show is a lot of fun. Thank you all so much, familia, for supporting and watching the Collazo show. I know I had taken a respite because of a lot of things like going on, and several of you reached out to me, thanked me for being back on. We're delighted to be able to listen to me on the drive to work. You don't know how much that means to me, and have this compromiso to do this, and so we're back better than ever. I haven't forgot about the water crisis of Puerto Rico, familia. I want to do that situation justice. I want to have the right guest to talk about it. Obviously, I mean, I'm infuriated by the whole situation. The lack of respect for my people by this governor there, by the federal government, is just ridiculous. And it's horrifying. And we're going to do everything we can to elevate that issue with the right voices, the people that really know what's going on. Obviously, we're doing everything we can. You saw on my personal social media, me and my sons were volunteering for our local Acción Colombia chapter in Philadelphia, organizing donations, bringing donations, packaging them up for the flights down to support the families and the young people, the people of the children of Colombia. Of course, we much love and respect all our Colombian fam and all the issues. Of course, everything with ICE is top of mind for me, and everything we can do to expose the shameful criminal behavior of the federal government towards our community, whether it's pointing guns at innocent people out in the street or putting them in horrific conditions, and even worse during these encounters in the street or these horrific conditions inside these concentration camps. We're going to continue to elevate and highlight those issues because, if you're not here for people getting tortured for no reason, then why are you involved in service? And of course, Bad Bunny's going to do his last 2 shows on the island. I mean, talking about exciting. Talking about another note. That's going to be a lot of fun. I have a Bad Bunny follower, the super analyst, that trying to figure out when she's going to come on. Do we do it to get ready for the show, or do we do it to evaluate after? I'm not going to be available that Monday after, so it wouldn't be in real time, but doesn't make sense. I got to figure out the timing. We're going to have a Bad Bunny episode to redux this whole what happened at the concerts this weekend and really this year of touring where he's changed the world. There's no question about it. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens at Hiram Bithorn over the weekend in La Isla del Encanto. Thank you so much, familia, for watching the Collazo Show. Continue to subscribe to me on Substack. That's where I premiere every episode. And then you can also follow me on YouTube at the Collazo Show and the Collazo Show podcast anywhere. And I mean anywhere you can listen to a podcast. Have a wonderful day.